Really hoping my phone doesn't fall in the snow. Now, I have a favorite saying that myself and some friends of mine came up with, and it's that context is overrated. And I hold to that saying at points, unless I'm talking about the Bible, usually, in which context is king. Well, we have no king but Christ. Aside from Christ, context is king when reading scripture. I'm probably losing some of my audience, so I'm going to stop with that for the moment. But it's one of my favorite sayings. Context is overrated. Some things are funnier, more enjoyable, even more artistic without it. But I think I'd like to provide some context. The video you're about to watch was made last year. It's supposed to be one of 3. There is no schedule for when parts 2 and 3 will release. I'm a very busy man. I work full-time. I have a wife. So who knows? Who knows? But I'd like to start doing this again. For those of you who didn't know I did this, I used to do this. Make videos, do stuff, YouTube, and record myself doing things. It was a good time. I enjoy it. And I'd like to start doing it more. Even just as a hobby, for fun. And that was the intention behind, well, one of the intentions behind what you're about to watch. So, it seems a little weird that things are dated 2025 and before. That's why. It's just been sitting on a hard drive for 9 months or so, 8 months, however long it's been finished. Again, there is more to come. Hopefully, I might make other videos or do other things before the next part of this comes out. I don't know. I'm not really holding myself to any sort of pact or vow or putting any pressure on myself. My life's too full of that. Not everyone's lives is too full of that. So, I'm just gonna do this for fun. So, hopefully you enjoy. Hopefully, if you know me, you're already subscribed to me, my channel. If you don't know me and you're randomly finding this, which I have no idea why that would happen, but you know, the algorithm is great. Maybe you will still subscribe because you like the cut of my jib, as they say. So hopefully that bit of context is good. This is very deep snow. This is probably at least 5 inches of snow, and I'm standing and I'm gonna just have fun. It had been 2 years since film school ended. I had 2 remote jobs, plus a job in customer service. I was a month off a breakup. But I was comfortable. I was comfortable enough. I loved my church. I had a decent home life. I had good friends. Nothing had to change. But I was crying out for more. Something different. And I had been for some time. Trying a method I've never tried before. We're going to see if it makes it go faster or slower. Hopefully faster, because there's few things in this life I hate more than doing yard work. Except for mowing the lawn. By this point, I'd been here for nearly 7 years. And that was as long as I'd been anywhere. I kind of felt like in a lot of ways my adult life hadn't really started. In many ways it hadn't. In some ways I was very independent. In others I still felt like at best I had a lot to learn about who I was. And at worst, oftentimes I felt like a kid.
So this is a conversation in our bus on the way to dinner.
When I'd lived in Indiana before, I thought it would be for much longer, but it wound up being only for 2 years.
Okay, that's enough.
And as a part of my process to find closure from that time, I began a tradition after moving of going back for vacations, for visits. And this was a tradition that I kept up for 3 solid years. I went in the summer of 2017 after I graduated from high school. And I had the chance and opportunity to surprise one of my best friends in the process of doing so and spend a week with him.
Look around. There's a golf course right over there.
We don't do stereotypes here.
Yeah.
No, we're not about that.
Did the same thing the next year during a break in college. Went back, spent a week. Didn't surprise anyone, but still did it. And the following year, I did the same thing. Though I didn't go in summer this time, I actually went over New Year's from the end of December 2019 to the beginning of January 2020.
Glory be to Christ.
Guys, he's leaving,
I know.
and it makes me sad.
Makes me sad. Also,
Put a tear on my face.
there's a tear on his face. Right.
And I bring all these visits up because though I didn't know it at the time, I was going for closure, for emotional closure, for physical closure, for relational closure. And I never really got it. I always left with this sense that there was more there, that there was time left to be spent there. Not time as a visitor, but time as a resident, time as someone who belonged there with those people and in that place. And believe me, over those couple of years, I flirted with the idea of coming back. I flirted with it often. I thought about it a lot. I prayed about it a lot. I talked about it a lot. But for a combination of a lot of reasons, ultimately culminating in the fact that I still loved my life where I was planted, and frankly that I was comfortable. Never felt like the right time. I was starting to feel like I was supposed to change something. At one point, I had 3 jobs. I was living with my parents, the oldest of 5, and all the others are still at home too, obviously. I was beginning to have that feeling of it's time to act like a grown-up that I want to be and that I want to feel like. So I planned one last trip. All the other times that I had taken these trips, I was very intentional to videotape a lot of things. I basically vlogged all of my trips in some way, shape, or form. And it was fun. It was great. But this trip, I was very intentional to not do that. I think what that did, and I'm sort of just realizing this now, it made me act more like I belonged there. More like I was supposed to be there. It made the trip feel less like a trip. Made me feel like I belonged. That was August 2021. And when I got home, I decided I would go. I didn't know how. I did not know exactly when. But I knew that I had to. I knew that I was going to. I knew that I desperately wanted to. So I began to get ready.
it does. Wow. There's a pretty solid chance that a lot of this weekend, if I'm not doing work around this house or on my computer or something, will be spent looking out of windows. It's pretty unbelievable that you can spend 7 to 8 years in a place and have it mean so much to you while you're there, only to have 10 more years of your life happen and not be able to imagine yourself back in that place you spent so much time in. That's kind of where I am right now. It's bittersweet because after this weekend, I won't have any foreseeable reason to be back here. But the important memories and the things that defined me while I was here will always be around. And all that is accompanied by this strange feeling that this house shouldn't belong to anybody else. And I know that's selfish, but it's gonna suck a little bit.
I could serve to provide some context behind the footage that you're seeing. My grandma, who we all called Marmy, passed away in February of 2020. I thank God every time I think about her and her passing that she was not alive to experience COVID, for a variety of reasons. Leading up into that time, she had been dealing with arthritis for a very long time, and all of that compounded with medication she was taking for other things just led to her getting weaker and her body deteriorating, and she went home to be with the Lord in February of 2020. And that left my granddad, Bubba, all alone in a very, very big house in the middle of Franklin, Tennessee. And that house happened to be my childhood house. Because of circumstances when I grew up, my mom and myself lived with my grandparents for a very, very long time. And as such, again, I grew up in that house. It became very clear that he would have to sell it, and he eventually got a place in Florida close to where we were living and was wrapping up getting the house ready to sell. And I took one last trip with him to Tennessee to visit the house one last time and help him do some work around the house so that he could sell it. I rediscovered all of that footage whilst scrubbing through content that I had sitting around to make this video that you're seeing now. And watching it back again and hearing myself talk about that particular trip made me start to understand some cause and effect stuff I had not really thought about before. As I began to get entrenched more in my life in Florida and more planted, something began to happen to me as I got more invested in my life in the present. I kind of began to I'm really not sure how to best phrase this. Essentially, I started to grow out of Tennessee. I just really stopped being able to see myself there, really. You know, I still love
that place, I just stopped being able to see myself living there after having been for a while open to the possibility of going back to live there at some point in time. While that was happening, I was beginning and continuing to feel this pull back to somewhere else I had been, which was central Indiana. The phenomenon that I experienced looking out of the window of my old house, not being able to picture myself back there, yet still very strongly tied to that place, and almost offended by the idea that anyone else could ever inhabit it. I am realizing in my adulthood that I am beginning to feel that way about Florida as well. And that's a very difficult thing for a lot of reasons. I'm not entirely sure what the point I'm trying to get at is, but I suppose maybe to boil it down to a saying, I guess. When people talk about the seasons of life, that's a very, very real thing, where there is a time and a place to be somewhere, and a time and a place to do something, and a time and a place to know certain people and be involved in certain things. And like my time in Tennessee has passed. My time as a resident in Florida has passed, and all of my interests have come here to this place. And they've been brought very clearly, very, very, very clearly back here. I guess kind of the final way that connects to me ending up back here and knowing that I very desperately wanted to end up back here was, while none of my trips I took to Indiana as a late teenager or young adult, while none of those trips gave me any closure, my trip to Tennessee with my grandfather to see my old house one final time, I did get closure from that. And I did not realize until several years after that how important that probably was to being able to jump out on my own the way that I did and say, I don't know how it's going to work, but I know that I'm going